Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today, with my very special guest, Nathan Hale of Maple Street Movies, we'll be discussing Shadow of a Doubt from 1943 from Alfred Hitchcock. So, how's it going, Nathan?
Doing well. Very excited to be here. Always happy to, not only be on the show with you, Harrison, but also talk about Alfred Hitchcock movies. So thank you for inviting me and looking forward to our discussion today.
Absolutely, and it's always a blast to have you on. And make sure to check his stuff out below. And I guess before we get started, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about your Alfred Hitchcock month that you just had?
Yeah, absolutely. So Alfred Hitchcock Month is every August on my channel, and it's a month devoted to his movies. So I focus not only on like ranking his movies, but also movie reviews or comparing certain movies. I highlight movies that feel like Alfred Hitchcock, but they weren't directed by him. Each year is different with the video content, but I just wrapped up the fifth year of doing it, and so it's been really fun. And it's something that I look forward to each year. And so, if nothing else, I'm enjoying it, but hopefully the viewers are as well because I keep doing it. But it's an annual thing every August because his birthday is August 13th. I should have started with that, but yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I love how this year you added the Alfred Hitchcock Presents a little bit, that show that he
Oh,
did. I thought that
yes.
was cool.
That's a first for this year, and I'm hoping in future years, if I continue with the show, to have a new top 10 for each season every year. But we'll see if I continue on with the show. It's a good show, but it's no Twilight Zone. But maybe season two
Sure,
picks
sure.
up that more.
No, absolutely. All right. Well, you're definitely the right man for the jobs because today we're talking about a Alfred Hitchcock film, Shadow of a Doubt. And before we get started, what have been your experiences or whatnot with the film?
Yeah. Uh, I can't remember. I must have seen it for the first time when I was in high school, and I can't remember how I felt about it the first time. I more so remember the second time. I think I've seen it probably three or four times in my life, and it seems like each rewatch gets better than the last one. And it's one that it's never been my favorite Hitchcock movie, but it's one that always sits either at the bottom of my top 10 or just outside the top 10. I think right now I have it at number 9, maybe number 10. But you get the idea. It's like a very good Hitchcock movie, but it's never been my absolute favorite. I'm a big fan of Teresa Wright, though, and a fan of Joseph Cotten as well. Plus, Henry Travers is in it, and I love him as
Yeah.
Clarence the Angel in my favorite movie, Wonderful Life. And so it's just a fun cast, a really interesting plot. But before I know it, I'm going to reveal everything from every category of the video. So I'll stop talking there.
No worries. Yeah, well, for me, this was my first time ever watching it. In fact, I'll show off to the
Oh, cool.
audience here. I have it on VHS, and I
Yeah.
actually had to break the seal. I didn't realize it was sealed up, but yeah.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing.
just good old DI, right? They always have stuff for $1 there.
Yes.
But
Uh-huh.
but anyways, this is my first time ever watching it, but it's one you hear about every once in a while. Not as
Yeah.
prevalent as like Psycho or Rear Window per se, but it's one
Mhm.
I've heard of before for sure.
Yeah, I was sad on my channel. I recently, I think you've been involved with this, but I've been doing a Hitchcock tournament where you comment your favorite or you comment your least favorite movie of the 10 movies that are competing against each other. And the way I put the tournament together was I just went on Letterboxd and sorted all his movies by most popular. And Shadow of a Doubt, I was so sad, barely missed the top 10, and so it wasn't in the competition. I think it was like 11 or 12 as far as most popular. And so it's kind of in that same area that I have it in my own personal ranking. It's not like the first movie you think of with Hitchcock, but as you get deeper into his filmography, you discover it and you're like, wait, that's actually really good.
Right. No, definitely. And well, since we're kind of talking about it, let's go ahead and get into our thoughts on the plot. So, what are your thoughts on the plot for Shadow of a Doubt?
Yeah, so I love the plot. I think it's a very interesting concept of not only suspecting someone for a crime that you don't know whether or not they've committed, but having that additional twisted element of it that it's your family member, because it's already a scary situation of suspecting someone, but it makes it even worse when it's someone you highly revere. And it's so fitting that in this movie, they're both Teresa Wright and Joseph Cotten both go by Charlie. That just really gives you an idea of how much she looks up to him.
Right.
For the plot, with that, that's my favorite element of it. However, I do have some issues with how on the nose they are with Uncle Charlie being suspicious of whatever the crime might be. I think that at times he's really smart, and at other times he's a complete idiot with like being way too obvious and
Right.
and sending hints that no, I don't want them to know about my secret life. And so for that, I can't watch it and like look past that, because he could have been such a like I'm not it's bad because I'm not rooting for him to get away with the crimes he's committing, but at the same time it's like, dude, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here by being so
Right.
obvious. And so I'm giving the plot overall a 4 out of 5. Really like the general idea of suspecting a family member of a bad crime, but not giving it that nearly perfect or perfect rating just because of some flawed character writing, I'll say.
Sure. No, I'm not going to really disagree with you there. I also gave it a 4. I liked it, and I thought it was very suspenseful once we find out kind of what he was really doing. But honestly, I think it takes way too long to get to that point. I think we spend way too much time with the
That's fair.
happy family and all that. Like, I would have liked to know a little bit
Yes.
more about the murders and about him, right? I felt it was very rushed once it all happens.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think that's a good point as well.
Yeah. But other than that, though, I thought it was a really good story. And once we do find out he's, a murderer and whatnot, that's where it really kind of picks up for me and becomes more of a Hitchcock movie.
Totally agree. Especially because Hitchcock was best at, I mean, obviously being the master of suspense. And so the fact that we as the audience knows that he has committed the crimes, or at least we're 95% sure he's committed the crimes, it makes it that much more suspenseful watching it rather than us being uncertain. I feel like the audience is much more glued to the screen because we know something's up. And so it makes any interaction between the girl Charlie and Uncle Charlie that much more creepy, because there's a lot behind that.
Right. No, absolutely. You get a really weird, I hate to say vibe, but a weird vibe with him when he even shows up. So no, I agree there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, kind of talking about that, let's move on to the acting. What are your thoughts on the acting?
So I think the acting is great, and I'm a big fan of. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'm a fan of Teresa Wright and Joseph Cotten. They're two actors that anytime I'm watching an old time movie, either I'm watching it because of them, or I'm pleasantly surprised when they pop up and I didn't know they were in it. But usually it's the former because I'm a fan of them, so I want to seek out their work. But they're two actors that I just really appreciate already, and so because of that, I think it's a little easier to maybe be biased towards their performances. I talked about Uncle Charlie being too obvious. However, I don't want to minimize how good Joseph Cotten still does. I think he's really good at playing a villainous role, especially because we've seen him in other movies where he's the good guy. And so to see him in
Right.
this role where he's a shady person, kind of fishy, has a secret, I think he does a great job at it, especially in those scenes where he's like low key threatening his niece, but not all the way. For an example, like squeezing her wrist and her saying, "You're hurting me." Little things like
Right.
that, where it's like he's subtly very creepy. So I think he does a great job there. And then Teresa Wright also, um, again, I'm biased to her. I really like her. So I'm not giving it a perfect 5 out of 5, but I am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. And there's not really any flaws to it. I mean, the little sister annoys me, but I'm not going to fault the movie for that. It's more so that I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's like a movie known for its incredible acting. So I'm not going to give it that perfect 5 out of 5.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Well, I actually gave it a 5 out of 5. um,
Nice. There we go.
yeah, I really love Joseph Cotten. I love how kind of menacing he is, especially when he confronts Teresa Wright's character, Charlie. um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of reminded me a bit if you've seen the movie Heat, like the really tense moment in the diner. That's what this kind of reminded me of too. Is kind of he's like,
Got it. Yeah.
there's nothing you could do about it. Basically, like I
Mhm.
I got away with it, and you're just a kid, right? You
It's
can't do
fair,
anything
man.
about it. Yeah. So I really love that. I also like Teresa
Cool.
Wright as well. I thought she was great. And I also liked some of the other supporting cast, like Henry Travers, like we mentioned. I thought he was
Oh,
hilarious.
yes. Love him.
Very
Yeah. The
Hitchcockian
whole
that
bit with him.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. We're going to say the same thing. Just that bit with him and his friend always planning murders. It's so funny to me.
Yes, it's so Alfred Hitchcock. And I was like, yes,
Oh,
we need
totally.
moments like this.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, that to me brought a lot of laughter that you needed because the movie was pretty tense other than that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
Yeah. Totally agree.
But yeah, but other than that, I thought it was a great cast all around. Um, I didn't really recognize anyone else other than those three, really. But yeah, all around good cast.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, let's move on to directing.
I gave this one a 5 out of 5 for directing, similar to why you gave the acting a 5 out of 5. And it's really because I just don't have any problems with the directing. There's nothing that I watch and I'm like, I wish Hitchcock would have done it differently. Granted, I'm not really thinking that anyways when I watch his movies, but it's just something that I think is very well put together. And I know how meticulous Alfred Hitchcock was behind the scenes and how he would plan out a scene and tell actors to stand a certain way or go to a certain part of the room because he already knew that after filming he would want a certain shot the way it was. And although no one in the moment understood his vision, he could translate it from being on set to screen. And so that's kind of an unfair 5 out of 5 because I'm just awarding Alfred Hitchcock just for being a great director in general. But there's nothing in this movie to me that strays away from him being a great director. I think he especially is really good at adding his suspense to the scenes. And that goes into a ton of technical stuff that if I start saying, uh, I will lose credibility because I don't know all the terms. But just I love the cinematography, which can't talk about that yet. But we'll talk about that soon. But his methods of directing work really well. I have no problems with it, so I'm giving it a 5.
Nice. Well, I give it a 1. No.
After all that, I'm like, all right, cool.
No, I give it a 4. I thought he did really good here. I just wanted a little bit more on Charles. I thought he focused a little too much
Yeah,
on the family. And I don't know if that was him
that's
or the
fair.
studio, but I would have
Yeah,
liked more on Charles just to kind of
hmm
get more of his motives,
got it.
Because
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know, to me, it seems like he's kind of the main character at the beginning, but then
hmm
Charlie becomes the main character. I kind of wish it was more focused on him.
Yeah, okay, okay. I can appreciate that. Agree with that.
Yeah. But like I mentioned earlier, once we find out the murders he did and all of that, that really is where it picks up and becomes a Hitchcock movie for me, and really is
hmm
where it becomes a 4.
There you go. Love it.
All right. Well, let's move on to cinematography and special effects. What are your thoughts on that?
I just like it's so funny because just seeing behind the scenes shots of Alfred Hitchcock filming, I just like I'm filled with a sense of pride, even though I have no connection or like relation to Alfred Hitchcock. Just being a fan, I guess it's the fanboy inside me. I love those kinds of images, so I'm glad you're using that.
Nice.
Cinematography, oh dear, I have it at a 4, and just talking right now, I'm gonna move it up to a 4.5 because it's not one. It's similar to the acting, where I think the acting is amazing, but it's not like the best acting I've ever seen. So I'm hesitant to give that perfect 5. I feel the same way with the cinematography. When it works, it really works. There's a certain shot where it is. Oh, I literally just watched this. Like, I watched it this month, but there's a shot. I believe it's the niece Charlie looking down the stairwell at her uncle Charlie in the doorway, and it might be reversed. I might have that mixed up, but
It's
either way,
reversed. Yep. Yep.
okay, is it reversed? Okay.
Yep.
Someone's looking down some stairs or up some stairs, and the other person's on the other side, and it's a really cool looking shot where it's just so eerie, silhouettes, just creepy. And it's in a particular scene where you as the audience member are already skeptical of Uncle Charlie, and so to see that angle just makes it even creepier. And so that's one that comes to mind. I think that the movie's successful on all other fronts as far as cinematography goes. Nothing that's like I don't think it's Hitchcock's best movie regarding cinematography necessarily, but it's far from his worst. It's not even bad. It's amazing. So I'll go ahead and go with a 4.5 out of 5.
Nice. Well, I went with a 4. I think the best scene for me is that interrogation. Well, call it interrogation, but once Charlie and Charles are talking together in the cafe,
Yes.
and just the little visual indicators, like he's strangling the napkin, or
yes.
Yeah.
You're just proving my 4.5 even more right now.
Right, exactly.
So good.
Yeah. But there's just little subtle things like that I love that Hitchcock does, or I guess his cameraman does. But it's very subtle things like that just add another layer to the suspense, because they don't have to say it, right? They're showing us.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, he's a murderer. Or there's like another scene where she's walking outside and he literally drops his cigar and he's like tensing up, trying to strangle her, and it's like matching up with her. And
it's so cool.
It's creepy, but it's really cool.
Hitchcock was so well known for show, don't tell. And so the fact that he took the time, because you're right, like the cinematographer is the one who focused on the napkin, but I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Hitchcock who said we need to make sure to get that shot because we're revealing to the audience what's on his mind. Though we're not hearing him say it, we'll know just from this one shot. And I think that's really cool. So I agree.
Yeah. But the only reason why I don't give it a 5 is, to me, it doesn't have any real iconic shots like in Vertigo or Psycho or North by Northwest. It all just seems like on par for Hitchcock, but not necessarily anything that stands out.
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, I liked it though. I mean, I was worried that it was going to be kind of bland because I've been watching like Blackmail and a couple of other of his other older movies, and those don't feel quite up there. And I was like, crap, is this going to be another one?
No, this one, by this time he had definitely grown into his style, if you will. I mean, he already had grown into it, but this one was, I think, really one of his earliest successes. It came out in the late 40s, I believe, and it was the 50s, obviously, that he went crazy with, just like so many great movies in a row. I mean, Dial M for Murder, Vertigo, Rear Window, North by Northwest, the list goes on. But all his 50s movies are incredible, and this one's just a few years before that. So I think this is one of his earliest examples of him really showing his power. But I agree with you where there are other movies that have better cases of cinematography.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, let's move on to the music. What were your thoughts on the music?
So the music was, it plays a bigger role in the movie than I think your standard black and white drama or thriller. I think the music is effective, especially when Charlie is struggling with the concept of her uncle being a different person than she's known all her life. And in that case, the music's very strong. The weakness with the music, though, is I couldn't tell you right now what the score sounds like. And granted, I haven't seen it as many times as other of his iconic movies, but even movies like North by Northwest or Vertigo, Rear Window, especially Psycho, I know how those themes go. And maybe it's unfair for me to compare it to those movies, but I think the movie does its job and it's good at the job. I don't think it's something that I'm leaving the movie thinking to myself, wow, that was an incredible score. So I give it a 4 out of 5 still, because although it's not, I don't know, I'm borderline 3.5 or 4 out of 5. I'm going with the latter, the 4 out of 5, because I do still think the music plays a pivotal part of the movie and of the progression. And although this contradicts it, going with that show don't tell, you can't see the music, but you know what I mean, where just by hearing the music you know how you're supposed to feel. So I think it does its job properly. I just don't think it's as iconic as other compositions for Hitchcock films. So I'll go with a 4 out of 5 for the music.
Nice. All right. Well, I gave it a 5. Now I
oh,
do
nice.
agree.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now I do agree that it's not as memorable, but I really love the moments where we could kind of see on the characters' faces and the music swelling up, and it kind of just fills in where there's no dialogue. Really, it kind of tells you how to feel, what they're thinking, and all of that. I think it does a really good job at that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's very effective. And like I said, it feels like a character of the movie. Like if you took the music out of the movie, it would be a weaker movie. It's definitely essential to the movie being as good as it is. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. And for me, I think the best scenes with the music are when she discovers the truth, looking at the newspaper, and also when she's on the train at the end. I think those are the best moments.
Yep. There's also, leading up to her discovering the truth, it's when she's racing to the library before it closes. And that within itself is a suspenseful scene because, oh man, is she going to get there on time? But I remember the music in that scene being exciting as well.
No, absolutely. All around, I really like the score, but I do agree. I don't think you'd be able to pick it out from, well, even from another Hitchcock movie from the 40s, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. Yep.
But I thought it was good. All right. So let's move on to our overall thoughts. What is your score, and would you recommend people watch this movie?
I think my score ends up being a 4.4 out of 5, which is fitting because on Letterboxd I have it at a 4.5 out of 5, so just barely there. But I highly recommend this movie. There's, I don't know if you were going to say this later, so I'm sorry if I'm stealing a fact from you, but there's that rumor that goes around about this being Hitchcock's favorite movie. Did you know about that?
I did, actually. I was going to bring that up, but yeah, talk about it.
I knew it. I knew you were. Dang it. Yeah, I was going to say, so it's a conflicting rumor because he has apparently said that like this was his favorite movie that he directed. However, in the book Hitchcock Truffaut, and this is me getting as nerdy as I can because I've read that book, I love that book. But in that book, when he's being interviewed by Francois Truffaut, Truffaut straight up asks him, "Now, wasn't this your favorite one?" And he's like, "No, I don't. It's not my favorite. I didn't mean to give that impression if I have in the past." Yet there are interviews where I haven't seen any of the interviews, but people have told me that he has flat out said Shadow of a Doubt's his favorite movie. And so I guess it depends on the day you ask him, but take that for what it's worth. His favorite, or at least one of, I just think of it as it was one of his favorites that he directed. But the fact that that exists to begin with should tell you everything about whether or not you should watch it. If the director himself is considering it to be even one of his best, like that's a reason alone. It seems like this is a less popular movie. Like if you were looking at his most popular movies, this is going to be around 13 to 15, give or take. And for that reason, I think it's worth watching just to get to know his more obscure movies, even though I wouldn't even consider this obscure, but I'm also biased because I've seen all his movies. So anyways, highly recommend it. Yes.
Well, there you go. Well, for me, I also got a 4.4. And so that all round to a 4 out of 5. And that's an 88% on Critic List, which is like Letterboxd, And I agree, I would recommend this movie. And unlike the other ones I've reviewed recently, Blackmail and, oh, what was that other one? It was the silent one. I can't remember what the other one was. But this one, you could show this
Yeah,
to people
yeah, it's
who
hard to
aren't.
remember them.
Yeah, this one I think is a good one to recommend, even to people who aren't Hitchcock fans. I just think it's a good movie in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had a great time with it. And do you know? Has it been released on 4K or any other Blu-ray? Even I don't know.
I yeah, I think it's been released in one of those 4K collections with Alfred Hitchcock where you can buy like 5 movies in that box set. They've done like I think 3 of those editions now, and I think it's on the second or third one. I wouldn't be
Okay,
surprised. Yeah, it's definitely not on the first one because I feel like they go in order of popularity, and so second or third one, I'd say. I'm gonna look it
okay.
up actually.
I'd be curious to know because as much as I love VHS, this tape has not aged well.
Oh dear. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at it. They do have a separate 4K for it, and then you can buy it in a set as well. And I think it's the oh, I can't tell. I think it's the second 4K set, but it doesn't matter. You get the idea.
Okay, yeah. Well, good. So then pick it up there. But there are some of his movies that haven't even had a DVD release, but this is not one of those. So make sure to pick it up if you can.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah.
Oh. All right. Well, those are our thoughts on Shadow of a Doubt. And before we go, any other last things you want to mention? Or this will be coming out at the end of September. Is there anything you got coming up?
Yeah, so just another plug for the Alfred Hitchcock month on my channel. The last video came out beginning of September, and so some fun videos there if you're a fan of Alfred Hitchcock. And then in addition to that, TCM, if you're not aware, every year they do Summer Under the Stars in the month of August, where every day of the month they focus on a different star from classic Hollywood. And for the first time, I participated in that. And so if you want to see my thoughts on the movies that I checked out for the first time, I also have that recently uploaded on the channel. But otherwise, just thank you so much, Harrison, for having me. As always, always great talking classic Hollywood. The fact that two guys our age aren't talking about modern day movies and that we're talking about classic Hollywood and the treasures of history and cinema and all that fun stuff, that's a miracle within itself. So always a pleasure, and thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again for coming on. And make sure to follow him, guys. I'll have all of his links down below. He's got great content, great videos, and just a great guy all around. So thanks for coming on again.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, and with that, this has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. This is my very special guest, Nathan. Take care, everyone.